Now, I'm not one to gossip, but I will bring you the tea. Welcome to Chronicle Speaks.
Your boy Tim Norman is said to be very impatient and ready for this whole ordeal to be over with. Most of the men in jail with him have not seen a woman in years. So when Tim entered in with those childbearing, when you dip, I dip, we dip hips, the excitement was at an all-time high. So the saying goes, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And I honestly think that Tim Norman's high-paid attorneys are going to use this route in trying their best to dismantle the prosecution's case against their client. The rabbit hole for this case goes deep, and we're going to try our best to give you up-to-the-minute details until Tim and his Titanic-sized derriere finally sinks. We're going to get into that and so much more, but before we do, please be sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on any of this tea. Now let's get back into it. So a few days ago, I caught you up on Terica and her plea deal. Today, we're going to go over Wally the Scammer, the insurance agent's plea deal, but I first want to update you on Tim and his attorney. So a lot of people were wondering if Tim was going to cop a plea or go to trial. Both Tim and his attorney feel strongly about winning this case and have decided to go to trial. Tim's attorney, Michael Leonard, said, "We fully expect the government is not going to be able to meet their burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, i.e. they are planning to poke all types of holes in this case. In my opinion, the case is so open and shut. However, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove, and they are trying their best to make sure that the prosecution can't prove a thing." I.e., that was the reason why they were trying to throw out Tim's phone. So I told y'all before that Tim has some very high-paid attorneys, and those attorneys are doing whatever they can to try to get Tim off. The other day, the attorneys was going at it with the government. Tim and his attorneys have filed motion to compel the government to produce Jinx material. Now, I know, like me, a lot of you guys was probably like, what the hell is Jinx material? Jinx material is evidence that is used in the course of a federal criminal prosecution in the United States. It usually consists of documents relied upon by the government's witnesses who testify at trial. The material is described as inculpatory, favoring the United States government's prosecution of a criminal defendant. So I know when I read that, I was still like, huh? So you know how it is in math. Sometimes you have to break things down to the simplest form. I'm that chick. Break it down some more for me, please. So I asked around. What I was told was Tim's attorneys want to know who these witnesses are. Tim's attorneys are wanting to know what these witnesses know. They want to be able to fight this fairly, so tell it all. The government said, no, we'll give you the Jinx material 10 days prior. Now, what we can give you now is Giglio material. I said, well, what the hell in the TI is that? There was a case of Brady versus Maryland, and in that case, the term Giglio material referred to any information pertaining to deals that the witness in a criminal case may have entered into with the government. Okay, again, let's break this down into simplest form, okay? Now, I hear that they have quite a few witnesses going against Tim, right? But let's use Terica for an example. The government could say, hey, we struck a deal with Terica, or we struck a deal with the witness, telling said witness that in exchange for her testimony against Tim, we will give her 15 years instead of life. Tim's attorneys can then start poking holes at the witness and saying, hey, is there a possibility, Terica, you may have made up this information to get less time and you decided to throw Tim under the bus to go home to your 2 kids, one of which is sick? The attorneys are paid to prove the client's innocence, even if they know the client ain't innocent. The government said, we don't want to give you this information too early. We'll give it to you 10 days prior to trial, but we don't want Tim possibly tampering with these witnesses, i.e. just get stitches. They already know that. Tim's attorneys was like, even if you did it 10 days prior, that don't mean they can't get stitches then. And they also said you have no proof that Tim has ever done this before as far as giving snitches stitches. So just let us have the information. So they are giving up until Friday to give them an answer as to whether or not they're going to produce this Jinx material. So we'll be back on Friday to discuss that. But up until then, let's go ahead and get to Mr. Wally Wael Conman Yagnam and break down these 800 policies that Tim tried to take out to get money on his own nephew, allegedly, but not so allegedly. Mr. Wally Wael Yagnam. He pled guilty to count 3 of the charge. The government said that they're going to move forward and dismiss count 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 all at the time of sentencing, beginning in or about October of 2014 and continuing until at least as late as September of 2019 in the Eastern District of Missouri and elsewhere. Wael Rabbi Yagnam, the defendant herein, voluntarily and intentionally agreed with co-defendant James Timothy Norman to provide materially false information on life insurance applications for the purpose of fraudulently obtaining life insurance policies on Norman's nephew, Andre Montgomery. In each of those life insurance policy applications, the defendant knowingly used various means of identification issued to Andre Montgomery, including social security number ending in 8196, for the purpose of executing the conspiracy to obtain fraudulent life insurance policy. Policy number 1, and I want y'all to keep count because it's important. America Life Insurance Policy. On or about October 14th of 2014, James Timothy Norman and Wael Rabbi Yagnam caused to be completed and then submitted an application to America's Financial Life and Annuity Insurance Company, hereinafter Americo, by which application James Timothy Norman sought a life insurance policy in the amount of $250,000 on his nephew, Andre Montgomery. On the Americo application, Wael Rabbi Yagnam listed Andre Montgomery's correct name, social security number, and date of birth. Wael Rabbi Yagnam and James Timothy Norman indicated in the Americo life insurance policy application that James Timothy Norman would be the sole beneficiary on the policy in the event of Andre Montgomery's death and will be responsible for paying the monthly premiums on the life insurance policy. Tim and Wiley falsely represented in the Americo life insurance application that Andre had an annual income of $100,000. Tim and Wiley further falsely represented in the Americo life insurance application that Andre's height was 5'7" and that his weight was 165 pounds. Had Americo been aware of these misrepresentations at the time of the application submission, the misrepresentations would have impacted materially the underwriting process by which the policy application was reviewed and the rate charged for the policy. In text messages exchanged via interstate wire transmission between Tim and the defendant instructed Tim to impersonate Andre in a telephone call with a representative from Americo regarding the life insurance application. And Big Booty Dum Dum decided to go along and do it. Now, this is policy number 2, Forrester's life insurance application. On or about October 31st, 2014, Tim and Wiley caused to be completed and then submitted an application to the Independent Order of Foresters, hereinafter Foresters, by which application Tim sought a life insurance policy in the amount of $200,000 as well as an accidental death rider in the amount of $200,000 and a 10-year term rider of $50,000 on his nephew, Andre Montgomery. On the Foresters application, Tim and Wiley identified Andre Montgomery's correct name, social security number, driver's license, and date of birth. Tim and Wiley indicated in the Forrester's life insurance policy application that Tim would be the sole beneficiary on the policy in the event of Andre's death. On or about October 31st of 2014, Tim and Wiley represented in the Forrester's life insurance application that Andre had an annual income of $28,000, despite having represented on October 14th, 2014, that Andre had an annual income of $100,000 in the Americo life insurance application. Tim and Wiley falsely represented in the Forrester life insurance application that Andre Montgomery had a net worth of $200,000. Tim and Wiley falsely represented in the Forrester life insurance application that Andre's height was 5'7" and that his weight was 165 pounds. Dummy 1 and Dummy 2 falsely indicated in the Forrester life insurance application that Norman's relationship to Andre Montgomery was both as his uncle and as his employer, when in fact James Timothy Norman had no employment relationship with Andre Montgomery. Tim falsely indicated in the Forrester life insurance application that Montgomery's father was living, 42 years old and healthy, when in fact Andre Montgomery's father, the brother of James Timothy Norman, died in 1994. Dummy 1 and Dummy 2 falsely represented in the Forrester life insurance application that Andre Montgomery had received a regular checkup from the attending physician at the People's Health Clinic in December of 2013. Tim and Wiley falsely represented in the Forrester life insurance application that there were no other life insurance applications pending for the proposed insured with Forrester's or another insurer, when in fact the Americo life insurance application submitted by Tim and Wiley was still pending. Had Forrester's been aware of the misrepresentation at the time of the application submission, the misrepresentations would have caused the policy not to issue. Policy number 3, y'all keeping count? Royal Neighbor Life Insurance Application. On March 16, 2015, Tim and Wiley caused to be completed an application to Royal Neighbor of America, hereinafter Royal Neighbors, by which application Tim sought a life insurance policy in the amount of $249,999, as well as an accidental death rider in the amount of $249,999 on his nephew Andre Montgomery. Policies with a face value or rider amount under $250,000 did not require the insured to have a physical examination in connection with the policy application. On the Royal Neighbor application, Tim and Wiley identified Andre Montgomery's correct name, driver's license, social security number, and date of birth. Tim and Wiley indicated on the Royal Neighbor life insurance policy that Tim would be the sole beneficiary on the policy in the event of Andre Montgomery's death. On March 16, 2015, Tim and Wiley falsely represented in the Royal Neighbor life insurance application that Andre Montgomery had an annual income of $50,000, that Andre had a net worth of $200,000, and that Tim was both his uncle and his employer, when in fact, Tim had no employment relationship with Andre. Tim and Wiley further falsely represented that Andre Montgomery had received an annual checkup from the attending physician at the People's Choice Center in September of 2014, despite the fact that Andre had never been seen or treated at that clinic. Had Royal Neighbors been aware of the misrepresentation at the time of the application submission, the misrepresentations would have impacted materially the underwriting process by which the policy application was reviewed and the rate charged for the policy. On March 17, 2015, Wiley transmitted the life insurance application to Royal Neighbors via fax wire transmission. Policy attempt number 4, United of Omaha life insurance application. On September 18, 2015, Tim and Wiley caused to be completed and submitted an application to United of Omaha Life Insurance Company, hereinafter Omaha, by which application James Timothy Norman sought a life insurance policy in an amount of $300,000, as well as an accidental death rider in the amount of $100,000 on his nephew Andre Montgomery. In the Omaha application, Tim and Wiley identified Andre Montgomery's correct name, social security number, driver's license number, and date of birth. Tim and Wiley indicated in the Omaha life insurance application that Tim would be the sole beneficiary on the policy in the event of Andre Montgomery's death. Tim and Wiley falsely represented in the Omaha life insurance application that Andre Montgomery's height was 5'7" and that his weight was 165 pounds, that Andre Montgomery had an annual income of $65,000, that Andre had not used any form of tobacco in the past 12 months, and that there was no other life insurance application pending or in force for the proposed insured, when in fact the Forester insurance policy was in force at the time Tim and Wiley submitted the Omaha life insurance application. Had Omaha been aware of these misrepresentations at the time of the application submission, the misrepresentations would have impacted materially the underwriting process and the policy would not have been issued. On or about September 18th of 2015, Wiley Rayo Yagnam submitted the Omaha life insurance application via wire transmission. Now on to policy attempt number 5, the Capital Life Liberty Insurance Company application. On or about September 24th, 2015, Tim and Wiley caused to be completed an application to the Capital Insurance Company doing business as Liberty Banker Life, hereinafter Liberty, by which application James Timothy Norman got a life insurance policy in the amount of $250,000, as well as an accidental death and dismemberment rider in the amount of $250,000 on his nephew Andre Montgomery. In the Liberty application, Tim and Wiley identified Andre Montgomery's correct name, social security number, driver's license number, and date of birth. Tim and Wiley indicated in the Liberty life insurance application that James Timothy Norman would be the sole beneficiary on the policy in the event of Andre Montgomery's death. Tim and Wiley further represented the Liberty life insurance policy was not intended to replace the Forester's insurance policy that was already in effect. Tim and Wiley falsely represented in the Liberty Life Insurance application that Andre Montgomery had an annual income of $100,000 and that Andre Montgomery had a net worth of $200,000 and that Andre's height was 5'7" and that his weight was 165 pounds and that Andre had received a physical from the attending physician at the Barnes Jewish Hospital in August of 2014. Had America been aware of these misrepresentations at the time of the application submission, representations would have impacted materially the underwriting process by which the policy application was reviewed and the determination to issue the policy. On September 24, 2015, Wiley transmitted the life insurance application to Liberty via fax wire transmission. So now we get down to the conspirators' attempt to collect on the Forester's life insurance policy. On March 14, 2016, Andre Montgomery was murdered in St. Louis. On March 18, 2016, following the murder of Andre Montgomery, on March 14, 2016, Wiley placed 2 telephone calls to Forester seeking to file a claim on the life insurance policy Tim owned on Andre Montgomery. On March 21st, just 7 days after Andre's death, Tim contacted Foresters twice by telephone seeking to file a claim on the life insurance policy he had taken out on Andre. On March 30th, 2016, Wiley placed a phone call to Forrester's lasting 10 minutes and 2 seconds. On May 21st, 2016, Tim submitted to Forrester's via U.S. mail a written claim on his life insurance policy on Andre Montgomery. On July 6, 2016, Tim received a letter via U.S. mail from Forrester's indicating that Forrester still had not received the finalized police report, toxicology, and coroner's report necessary in order to process his claim on the life insurance policy. Between August of 2016 and November of 2016, Tim repeatedly contacted Forrester's in connection with his attempt to claim the life insurance policy. In or about September of 2018, Tim retained an attorney to represent him in connection with his attempt to claim the Forrester's life insurance policy. That attorney subsequently sent a letter to Forrester's indicating that Tim had authorized the attorney to file a lawsuit for failure to promptly pay the life insurance claim. On September 26, 2019, 3 years after the murder, Forrester sent James Timothy Norman a letter via U.S. mail advising James Timothy Norman that as of the date of that letter, Forrester still had not received all of the documentation required to adjudicate his claim on the life insurance policy. So Tim paid all of that money on those policies, did all that lying, backtracking, and booty popping, and you still didn't get anything for the murder of your nephew. How do you feel now, dummy? So for the statutory penalties, Wiley, the defendant, fully understands that the maximum possible penalty provided by law as to count 3 for the crime to which the defendant is pleading guilty is imprisonment of not more than 20 years, a fine of not more than $250,000, or both such imprisonment and fine. The court may also impose a period of supervised release of not more than 3 years. We're going to go over the sentencing guideline just like we did with Terica. The U.S. Sentencing Guideline 2018 manual. The defendant, Wiley, understands that this offense is affected by the U.S. Sentencing Guidelines. Actual sentencing range is determined by both the total offense level and the criminal history category. The parties agree that the following are the applicable U.S. Sentencing Guideline total offense level provisions. As to count 3, the following sentencing guidelines calculations apply. Base offense level. The parties agree that the base offense level is 7. Now, I'm sure Wiley was like, oh, a level 7, I could do that. Looking at the sentencing table, a level 7 with little to no criminal history would give him 6 months. But a level 7 giving him high criminal history would give him 15 to 21 months. That's still not bad. Going back to Terica, you remember they initially had her at a 43. I told y'all 43 was the max you can get, and that's life. They knocked her down to 40, which is 292 to 365 months with little to no criminal history and 360 months to life at the max criminal history. So little to no criminal history with Terica would start her off at 24 years, but you remember 20 years was the max. However, when it comes to these guidelines, the court does not have to abide by them just because you pled guilty. They may not. Who's to say? Getting back to Wael, this is when it gets serious for him. They saw that level 7. They said, we're going to get you for a little bit more than that. The government's position is that the intended loss associated with the offense of conviction is not less than $550,000 and no more than $1.5 million, resulting in an offense level increase of 14 points. He went from a 7 to a damn 21. But the government said, we'll do you a solid. We'll knock off 3 points since you agreed to accept responsibility. So he went from a 7 to a 21 to now at 18. So at a level 18 with little to no criminal history, he'll have a little bit over 2 years. At a level 18 with the highest amount of criminal history, he'll have 5, almost 6 years. Now, I'm not sure how they came up with that amount of a loss. They said less than 500,000, no more than 1.5. Wiley and his attorneys do not agree with the loss amount, and they say they will litigate the issue at sentencing. So they're not agreeing that that amount was lost. I don't really feel it was lost either, just for the simple fact Tim was never paid out of the policy. I'll see what happens with Wiley at sentencing. Right now, it's up in the air. If it goes like the court is seeing it's going right now, Wiley is going to get at least 2 years, no more than maybe 6. At the sentencing guideline, Terica is going to at least get the 20 years, possibly 24, and it could be more, but she's going to get at least the 20. I don't think they're going to do anything less than that, just looking at the sentencing guideline. Tre'vell over there looking like the little engine that couldn't. He's probably going to get his 22. I have to go back and look at what his number was as far as offense level. Just looking at them, they all gutter snipes, they all rats, and they headed by the head rat Butter Tootie. I can't stand Tim Norman. I can't stand Wael, Terica, or Tre'vell. What they did to Andre just does not make sense. And the fact y'all didn't even get nothing out of it. Terica, I'm sure that 10,000 you got didn't last you long. Tre'vell, it looked like you smoked your 5,000 up. Wael, I don't even know what you received for everything because they didn't even talk about any money you received in exchange for it. So what did Tim give you? Or did he promise you money from the insurance? Like, they never talked about that. What did you and Tim have going on? Huh? Y'all? I personally have 2 friends that have lost sons due to senseless murders. Actually, 3 friends. And to hear what they have to go through, sitting down, listening to the trial, hearing what happened to their kids, I don't wish this on anyone. So the fact that Andre's mother has to go through this, my prayers and thoughts are with her. Miss Robbie, I'm not praying for you at all. I'm sorry. The fact that you're funding this bodacious body monster, Timothy Norman, I can't. I really can't with you. They say respect your elders, so I'm going to just hush. God's going to deal with you eventually, lady. Hopefully you get yourself right before you meet your maker. But funding this man, knowing what he did to your grandson, you're wrong. And mothers like you create monsters like this to think that they could just get away with anything, including murdering their nephew. I don't know what's going to happen with this case. I honestly pray that justice is served the correct way. Because honestly, with a monster like that, ain't nobody safe in that damn family, including his mama. I need to hear from you guys. What do you think about everything going on with Tim and Wael pretty much disputing that the crime does not match the time? Leave a comment and you know how we do. We'll talk about it down below. Talk to you guys later. Bye. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and hit that bell so you don't miss any of my new episodes.